Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you once again to go over all the action in the British Basketball league this week. And Dave, last week we were saying what a perfect week it was for Sunday Night Breakdown. Not so optimal this time around with all these games on Sunday and the last one going to overtime.
Yeah. There's words, aren't there? But we'll not use them.
But we will endeavour to bring our A game here for this slightly belated Sunday Night Breakdown. So let's go back to Tuesday night. We'll start with the EuroCup and a historic night for the London Lions, who claimed their first ever win in the competition, beating Trento of Italy by 80 points to 75. The first win by any British team for 18 years in the EuroCup, a game that is still in the records books. Actually, the last British win, it was the Brighton Bears win. It's in the record books because Randy Duck set the all-time scoring record for a player, and it's not been beaten since.
For those who are new to the BBL, or at least newer than us, or at least newer than 18 years, Randy Duck was, I believe, the genesis of the famous Chuck-a-Duck game.
He was, yes.
Where,
we see it all over the league now.
That was engineered by somebody very close to the NBA champion head coach, Brighton, and the Ducks flew on, and it was all about Randy Duck.
Yeah, and that
of course, the most sarcastic fans said, "Ooh,"
yeah. And the other thing is, for anybody new, you are allowed momentarily laugh at the name Randy Duck. The rest of us have just got used to it.
Although I always preferred Chuck Guitar.
Chuck Guitar with the Birmingham Bullets, circa 95, 96.
Yeah, Chuck Guitar. I don't think you beat that.
So let's get to the action.
No, all the strings. Sorry.
Indeed. No Decker or Kufos for the Lions. No Ladona or Udom for Trento. Probably fair to say a bigger loss for London than it was for Trento, although certainly Ladona plays a key part in their rotation. Not a load in this game. Trento were up for most of it, but never by more than a shot or two. I almost just want to get to the end, Dave. But was there anything you wanted to pick up?
There's a couple of things early. One, Ovi kind of decided he wasn't going to lose this game from the beginning. He said to put a stamp on it, to be fair. And two, over the first three quarters, I thought certainly everything I knew about London was what it was, and Ovi stepped into the gap that that Decker and Kufos had left. Trento, I wasn't overly impressed with, to be honest.
The context of that is Trento were 1-15 in the competition last year. They haven't won on the road for 2 years. So and I hadn't seen them until I watched this game back on Saturday morning, but a colleague of mine who covered their first game said they were worse than last year, and that was before they played London.
It wasn't even, to be honest, it wasn't even that their talent level. It was their attention to detail seemed to me to be somewhat lacking. I mean, there's a moment in the first quarter where they ran Queeley off the 3-point line so he could throw it to Huban in the corner. And then the second time when, Ovi's catches the ball 18 feet from the basket, and it was a highlight play, the highlight reel play where he dunked it, where they ran out at him and gave him his right hand. And that's like juvenile stuff. That type of closeout, that type of wrong lack of detail on players. That didn't really impress us. But what London's flaw was, as it has been in the first game, it was their three-point defense, and they weren't able to challenge three-point shooting off the catch the way that they're going to need to as the competition goes on. And that was the only reason Trento were able to stay close, because they were able to make threes off the catch. And it's different because the ball does pop a bit quicker with these teams than it does in the BBL. And the shooters are a little bit higher standard, particularly the catch and shooters, than they are in the BBL, which means that you get punished for your mistakes. And if you're not closing out the right way, they're going to beat you that way in threes more than two. So they're always going to keep themselves close in the game. So outside of Trento's 3-point shooting, and I thought London's slight lack of diligence in defending it, there really wasn't much to the game, as you say, until probably the fourth quarter.
So we'll get to the fourth quarter. Flacadori with his fifth three of the game, and then a steal and
Great
a run
name.
out.
He must be Italian.
Diego Flacadori, yes, indeed. And Spagnola with a steal and run out.
Not a bad name either.
68-74. with just under 4 minutes to play, and you think, well, there could be big trouble here, because actually in a game that hadn't had much of a lead, 6 points felt like a lot. And then Herban made a shot to make it 70-74. That was actually the last field goal of the game, with 3.5 minutes to go. Everything else was from the free throw line. Zubcic made 2, and then Soko made 2, and 2:15 to go. It's tied at 74.
Herban's made big shots in every game I've watched. And he's kind of the exponential improvement of the Lions is that they had a great shooter last year in Kajini, and they swapped him out for a guy like Herban, who is the next level up on him. And is 6'6" and also defends everybody and doesn't do anything dumb, which makes him a hell of a player. And the other thing about London is, in every game we've seen this season, they have a switch in relation to their defense. They might not have it in relation to their offense, but they have it in relation to defense. And they did eventually switch and step it up in this game. It is interesting, really, because it's Sulawad who is often playing at the end of these games, and who the coach is really going to as part of his defensive unit when it matters. I think he's really impressed me in the way that he's impacted games without actually having to have the ball in his hands that much. And they just gradually took away the mistakes that they'd taken away previously. And I don't think Ovi was going to let them lose that game.
2:09 to go. Flacadori with an offensive foul. It was his fifth. Coach Schmidt challenged it for the potential of an unsportsmanlike, which I thought was a little optimistic, but 2:09 to go. It didn't really matter, because I'm pretty sure you can't use your coach's challenge in the last 2 minutes, because the referees can challenge whatever. So you might as well roll the dice, and the replay might look worse.
What's the EuroCup?
No. You just lose the challenge, basically.
Okay.
London then turned it over, 150 to go, but great defensive stand by them, forced a 24-second violation. But then London again turned it over, this time on a charge from Urban Lockett with the stand. Urban then made amends and steals it back with 50 seconds to go. And Soko's fouled in transition and goes to the line and makes 2, puts them up 74-76, 45 seconds to go.
And as you say, it's a defense. The defense, they're closing out their ball pressure, having the best defensive unit on the court at that point in time, and they'll take whatever they make of the offense. But the advantage of Soko is, particularly in Europe, I actually think he's a better matchup in Europe than he is in the BBL. I think he's harder to guard in Europe, because in the BBL he's generally playing against guys his own size at that position. He's up with maybe more quickness. And it doesn't allow him to face up as efficiently. He kind of has to. He kind of feels like he has to go down low and post up and try and bully people, and that's not really his game. His game is stretching, attacking, finishing on the face up, and then getting out in transition. And they had no one who could guard him all night, either at the 4 or the 5. And obviously without Decker and Kufos, there's a bit more of the ball for him as well, which kind of helps too. But yeah, him in transition. You play defense, and you've got the most athletic guy in the court who's running the floor and who's making plays.
So then up 2 Lions, Soko commits a foul. It's the 4th team foul, so it's a sideline ball.
It's like that foul actually, but I know he took it, but I thought they had them. But anyway, I thought he gave him a get out.
Spanola misses a 3. Scrum for the rebound. Zubcic had his hands on it, but the referees went and reviewed it. And decided that Best had shoved Crawford to the ground. So 18.9 seconds to go.
Just to say on that, I had no idea what the referees were reviewing, and neither did the commentator, who I think thought he was watching a football match.
You see on EuroLeague, they put a graphic up, and it tells you what it is, but it doesn't. They don't do that on EuroCup.
Why can't you hear the ref? Why can't we hear the refs? Can you hear that on EuroCup or not?
No, they do that. They do that in the FIBA stuff, but they don't do it. They don't do it on there. But
shame.
But at least if you know what it's up for, then it gives you some sort of inside knowledge. Anyway, Crawford went to the free throw line, bearing in mind that Trento were 9 of 9 from free throw line until that moment. He went 1 for 2. So it's 76-75. Lockett commits a foul immediately to send Best to the line. He makes both free throws. 78-75. They don't advance the ball because there's more than 14 seconds remaining. And you said you didn't like the other foul. I quite liked this foul with 6 seconds to go by Soko, because Crawford was out by the 3-point line but hadn't yet got into his shot motion.
Yeah, smart foul, no question.
So he sends Crawford to the line. He misses the first free throw, which is always suboptimal in that position. So he tried to deliberately miss the second one, but he broke the line. The shooter obviously can't go until the ball hits the ring. Everybody can go on the release, but not the shooter.
Sure that he did, I mean, I didn't watch it back, but it's just that he threw the ball so hard at the rim. It got there very quick. I don't know how a ref can judge that, because he literally got there within the 10th of a second. So anyway.
The timeout advance the ball. Foray fouls Best. He makes both free throws, and Soko stole the inbound pass, and I thought, shoot the ball, shoot the ball.
They were too happy celebrating.
Yeah. But I get it in that situation. But another 2 points wouldn't have hurt. I don't think they'll finish level with Trento at the end of the season. I think they will win the head-to-head 2-0. So I don't think it'll matter. But I was still going, shoot the ball. So that's a first win for them. Soko with 22 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 9 fouls drawn, a PAR index of 39, which at the time looked an absolute shoo-in for player of the round, but he ended up having to share it with 2 other players. There were 3 players with the same with the 39 index. There you go, shoo-in of the round. Urban was 5 of 7 from 3-point range for 17 points. They had 5 players in double figures, 13 of 26 from behind the arc as a team. Trento were led by Flacadori, who was also 5 of 7 from 3-point range for 17 points. Crawford was 4 of 5 from behind the arc for 17 points, and they were also 13 of 26 for 3, and 21 of 24 from the free throw line. The only 3 they missed were the important ones at the end.
These can all shoot. You're gonna have to defend the shooters. Keep defending the shooters. Keep getting out on the catches. Keep making them drive. Use your athleticism. I think it's a great win for London. Happy that they finally got seats behind the baskets as well, because they used to hate the gaps behind the baskets. I thought it took the environment away. But no, the energy in the building looked really good, and the crowd got into it, and there didn't appear to be much in the way of extraneous noise or
not allowed.
Not allowed. Well, there you go. It's not allowed because it spoils it. So great, and on that basis, with two serious players down, to be able to churn that win out is really, really good. It bodes well, but it's quite relentless. They got to keep going.
And the reason I watched this one back on Saturday night was because I was doing Hamburg against Turk Telekom that evening, which Turk Telekom won 88-83. I wasn't massively sold on either of those teams. And then the following night, I did Paris against Hapoel Tel Aviv, and Hapoel won that game 100-86. And the thing I thought was, Hapoel are really good, So it made me reassess that defeat for London last week. Paris can shoot the 3. That going back to your point of defending the 3-point line, there was 7 of 11 in the first quarter from 3-point range. So I think they're a team that will live and die by how well they shoot the 3. They then went 1 for 11 in their next 11, and that's why Hapoel got on top and stayed on top. But yeah, I thought Paris were good. I thought Hapoel are really good. The other 2, they were okay, but I think London full strength might be about the same sort of thing. They're 1-1 now, Lions, in that group. So are most of the rest of the group. Hapoel are 2-0, and Prometheus are also 2-0. So let's go to the BBL action and start with the game you were at, Dave. Newcastle. I always say you were at. I assume.
Hang on. Let's just reverse this. Because obviously you've been prognosticating about Bristol a lot.
Yeah.
So how about I lead you into this?
Go on then.
Obviously we've got Bristol, who are without Ollison, and Newcastle have signed Kyle Johnson, and last minute last dish rush to get Ubiaro signed on to play his 46 seconds.
Mm.
And the game, I thought, Dan started out, bit nip and tuck. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I thought it did. Interestingly, the starting lineup for me with Johnson into the starters, but then he got 2 fouls almost immediately, and Motford came in for them. It wasn't really much in it, was it? Newcastle made a few shots, and they were just edging the early stages, but it didn't really they didn't really get away until later in the first half when they managed to pull out to 9.
That's right. I mean, there was
Did you give the score, by the way, when you're in the lead in? You've got to give the score. It was 89-78.
Oh, all right. I see. We've got to tell the people what happened.
Yeah.
No. I'm a rookie. Apologies. Can't. Anyway, yeah, you're right. And you're right about the way it started. Bristol played the way that they have played. Bell in particular was impressive. He attacked the rim, but Newcastle were pretty slow to understand that. When guys were coming down the middle, the ball was going up, and that's when you've got to really congest your defense and get hands on there. And they're not really looking to kick it out that much. Newcastle's spacing was pretty good, and Cohen kind of took the primary ball handler role, which is going to be obviously a shift between him and Hamlet, because Hamlet's probably more of an off the bounce scorer. And there's a lot of energy in the building. It was really quite, Bristol as a team, really watching them up close, they kind of struck me as like a throwback to like Vince's teams at Milton Keynes.
Yeah, that's a good analogy actually, because Vince used to have an entire team of guys 6'3" to 6'6", all athletic.
All who could jump out the gym, and all who are going, and just flying around and bouncing around and just no fear basketball, no recrimination basketball, just make plays and we'll see where we go and etc. I don't think they'll start as many fights as Vince's teams used to start. No, but when Mike New was a small forward at like 6'9". Not that Mike New started fights, but there's a couple of other guys who,
his elbows may have started a fight or two.
When you put him next to, kind of, latter stage Youngblood, there was a need for a blood kit to be on permanent awareness. But no, that's what they struck me, and they were just, really bouncing, really athletic, and really energetic all over the court. But they didn't execute very well in the game. And they ended up losing the game where they had 22 more shots than the opposition. Which is pretty difficult to do, really. And they didn't just lose; they lost in the end. It wasn't close that they lost, So in relation to Newcastle, they've got obviously lots of pieces. I think Johnson is meant to be the starting 4. I think he probably will stay the starting 4. He's a competitive guy. And I think he adds a little bit of
Donovan Johnson.
And Jeff, the commentator, is calling him Donny Johnson.
Donny Johnson,
I'm sorry, not allowed. We've only ever one Donny Johnson. Those of you remember him will know why I say that. He was a one-off.
He was a one-off.
Donny. But I think he's likely to start, and then and they got a game from Kennedy, and they got a hell of a game from Cohen. That was probably the difference. Cohen was the best guard on the court. But no, the game got to half time. It was very nip and tuck, and there was not much that I overly remember about it, other than thinking it was a good game. Yeah,
and into the second half, Flyers cut the lead down to 450 to 46, went back out to 10, 57-47, back to 1 point, 57-56. And I was thinking, were I watching this live, which I obviously wasn't, that was the moment really for Bristol right there. But then you got 2 threes from Kennedy and one in between from Mockford to make it 68-58, and it was really actually relatively comfortable from there. There was a moment they got it to 4 in the fourth, but
I mean the reality is in this game, Cohen and Kennedy were 8 of 8 from the 3-point line. And Kennedy, and they were actually all the shots they took were good shots. And Kennedy maybe bailed them out a couple of times at the end of a shot clock, made some tough shots. And when that happens, you've got you've got a chance. You can't always rely on that happening, of course. But Kennedy and Cohen, I thought, were locked in this game, and then they got a little bit of a boost at the end from Shelton. Basically,
pumping up the crowd.
Yeah, what happened? I thought was that Bristol, obviously they got a couple of guys who played with Hamlet at North Texas, and obviously Hamlet's averaging 20 a game. And I think they were very slanted towards locking him down, and at times they were going under screens on Cohn, and Cohn was just stepping up and knocking down threes when that happened. And I thought they probably over exaggerated in relation to the amount of attention they gave to Hamlet, possibly because they know him. And then when they started going over the screens on Cohen, that's when he was able to throw a lot of the alley-oops to Shelton, because he was able to attack. And Bristol just couldn't make enough shots, and they didn't have Allison, who maybe one of the better shooters, which probably hurt their rotations a little bit. But they survived in this game because of their offensive rebounding, and without that, they'd have been gone well beforehand. But no, it was overall, shooting didn't travel.
Nope.
One
person who did shoot the ball tremendously well was Cohen, with 20 points, 6 of 6 from the floor, 4 of 4 3-pointers, 4 of 5, missed one free throw right near the end, and 9 assists. Kennedy also
6 shots, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. You would. Kennedy with 17 points off 8 shots, 6 of 8, Hamlet 15. King had 20 and 8, Bell 19 and 6, Delpesh 14 and 9. They shot 38% field goal rate percentage, 4 of 29 even from 3-point range, 23 offensive rebounds, 21 second chance points. And I still go back to, I'd much rather shoot 48% than get 23 second.
So you got to make some shots. I mean, Mahan was the one in this game because he was getting quite a lot. I thought he was like 0-5, 0-6 and 3-point in the first half. If you're a shooter, you shoot. There were probably 2 or 3 that he could have attacked because he's not a small guy as well. I thought he settled a little bit, and then the rest of them, they have guys I think who shoot as opposed to guys who are absolute nailed on shooters. I would describe them as. Doesn't mean you can't make them. Doesn't mean there won't be games when you don't make them. But it wasn't one of those guys where you thought, as a Newcastle fan, I wasn't standing there thinking, oh, don't give him an open look. Oh, he's over. He can't do that.
Mahan made his last one. He was 0 of 8 before that, and we just flagged that up for what is going to come later. So let's go to the game. I was at the Sky Sports game. London Lions 75, Cheshire Phoenix 60. Still no Decker or Kufos for London. Maceo Jack in for Cheshire. Ulf was actually out warming up, but I did speak to Ben before the game. He said he's still not ready. But most importantly of all, Dave, Keith was back.
Well,
yeah,
I only watched the game on fast forward, and apart from throwing the ball to the wrong team to inbound it, I thought he did okay.
Yeah. There was 1 or 2. There was a goaltend that he missed.
There was a goaltend. But to be fair, there's a few goaltends being missed this year. Actually, that's right. There was, and it's always. I always think that the coach's reaction on that is always a giveaway because I always, if it's a good block and you're against your team, you're on the bench going. The goaltend, you're immediately up going, and because you're at the side of the court, normally next to the basket, if it's at your end, you get a better view than the refs because you're actually not moving.
Because obviously it was in transition, so
in transition
was at full speed.
And you can see the ball. You can actually see the ball but come off the backboard first. So okay, I'll let you off. Okay. This one, Williams, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, this game had shades of Surrey last week. Really, not a great deal in it. Low scoring. It went really deep into the bench. Obviously, they had Tuesday night, Friday night, Sunday night, and then they go to Gran Canaria on, I think it's Wednesday. Is it? Well, I think it's Wednesday, that game. Not sure, but everybody apart from Caboza played 10 minutes. He played 7 minutes. It's a busy part of the schedule.
I thought the game, to be honest, I thought he had a look at Cheshire and he decided that in the middle of the second quarter when Cheshire were into their bench as well, I think he thought I can go really deep against this group. So he ended up with, I think from memory, Caboza, Queely, Welcheume, Ward Hibbert, and maybe
DVO, I think it was.
DVO, so
Yeah.
yeah.
There was, I did actually look at it, and I think that lineup had, I looked at it on Synergy, I think it was that lineup, I didn't write it down, had the 4th most offensive possessions for London in the game.
Yeah, and that and that was the time whereby Cheshire have to put their foot down there. You have to put your foot on their throat there. No, it's not because those guys can't play, but because if you don't put your foot on their throat there, then the other guys are coming back eventually.
Yeah.
And I thought the fact that he trusted them was good, but I mean, in reality, the schedule that they've got, the smart thing to do so. And they played like they belonged. Shume played aggressively. Kaboza's an aggressive guard who finishes quite well around the rim. And they're all enthusiastic and they're playing good defense. Now, I don't know, notable that lineup didn't get anywhere near the court against Manchester.
No.
And I think that's the coach making some qualitative decisions in relation to what he can afford to do and when. And it is, it's that tap again, it's balanced, it's spinning those plates.
Yeah. And the other thing in the Manchester game is he obviously had Kufos back, so he's one extra
true.
frontline guy. So Nelson making threes, defense making everything hard for Cheshire. At the third quarter, I thought they were going to get away London, but fair play to the Knicks. They hung on in.
Well, Teague made some shots. I mean, Teague made 3 or 4 threes in the third quarter. Now, if Teague doesn't make those shots in the third quarter, and you have to remember every guy's, this is live on TV. Cheshire's only getting away games on TV, so it's a big game for them. People want to announce themselves. They're playing against a EuroCup team, so Taj Teague has not made many threes this season, and it's bang, 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 and he helped them remain close, but they couldn't, Cheshire couldn't get to the rim, or couldn't get to the rim sufficiently enough to finish. And then it was just that gradual strangulation.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it on commentary as well. The minutes that they were playing versus the minutes London were playing. At some point, that catches up with you. And then in the fourth quarter, Urban came in, made some really tough shots. Soko 5 in a row, and the next thing you know, you look up, it's 67.
I know 50. You say the minutes catches up with you, but I actually think it's the talent as much as the minutes catches up with you. It's not, it's not just the fact that you're playing, you're playing 35 minutes and a bunch of guys who are nominally at the same level you are playing 25. In that situation, you'd expect the 25-minute players to win maybe 7 out of 10 games. But when it's Urban and Soko coming back, it makes it really difficult at the end of the game, particularly when I say that, they have a switch and it's become quite apparent that they have a switch. The switch is defensive. And that actually can be really impactful because teams get used to playing at a certain cadence, a certain tempo, a certain pace in the game, and get used to the shots that they can get and how they can get them. And if you have an ability to up it at that end, then suddenly last 5 minutes when the game's on the line, those shots aren't there anymore, and you're asking players the opposition to do something different. Game's gone before you know it. All it takes is three or four screwed up offenses, runs the other way in a close game, an 8-point game, and it's gone. And they're not trading possessions down the end of the game. They really got a kind of, you can see the mentality that they've got defensively at the end of the game, and that's good. I mean, it's quite impressive. I mean, the question that we asked at the beginning of the season about how much difference does 8 times the budget or 7 times the budget or whatever it is, how much difference does that actually make on the court? And what we're seeing is that it makes a heck of a lot more difference when it matters than it does for every minute of every game.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing at the moment. And that part of that is because of the talent. Part of that is because they're being well utilized, I think. And protected and looked after.
Yeah, I mean, he comes across very even keel, doesn't he? He doesn't seem to ride the waves of the.
He has to be. They've got so many games. I think he's got so many players to keep happy. He can't be he has to let all the others. It's a very NBA mentality. They play so often, then he has to be the one who has to keep everybody on the even keel because they look at him. And if he gets too high or too low, then all that will do is encourage the players to do the same. That will tap into the players' emotion. And at the moment, he's got a couple of guys there who are headstrong, I think. I'll go as far as saying that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that's probably a good thing. Certainly, Ovi counts as that. Zubcic certainly, absolutely is wired, to wired to win. I think I would put it that way. I've seen that look. Kufos plays like he's seen it all before. And the guards are just playing hard. The guards on be it Van Oostrum or be it Nelson or Sowade or Queeley, they're all just coming in and playing really, really hard, and that's getting them through.
We talked about the minutes. Sharma played 28, and actually in the pre-game interview today, Coach Schmidt was talking about what a positive that was, because he's had some foul issues in other games and not actually had a chance to get to 28. Urban with exactly 20, and everybody else was sub 20 minutes. Urban led the way with 17 points, 6 of 8 shooting. Nelson had 11. Everybody, all 12 players, scored, which hasn't happened since.
No clue. Tell me.
March. Surrey did it. Surrey did it last year. It's actually happened.
Not Randy Duck territory. Then.
No. It's actually happened 23 times in the last 14 years, which is why I didn't bother tweeting it out. Otherwise,
that's Urban with what 20 points on 8 shots. Those are the numbers which win games.
Tough shots as well. 6 of 8 tough shots. Anderson 11, Teague 11, Neighbour 10. Speaking of tough shots, it was difficult to get them away. They were 35% from the floor, 8 of 26 from 3, 23 turnovers they had in that game. So let's go to the final game on Friday. Leicester Riders 102, Manchester Giants 89. Leicester were without Derek Thornton through food poisoning, although Zach Jackson, who's been out with a back injury.
Have we established whether this is a pucker pie?
I would not have such pucker pie slander, to be fair. I wouldn't believe that to be true.
Meat, salmon, who knows? I'm not saying it is, I'm just asking a question.
The very nice.
Hell of a thing if you get poisoned by your sponsor, wouldn't it?
Very nice pucker pies. We won't have a word said against them. Zach Jackson, who's been out with back problems recently, was back. Although I thought today he showed a bit more signs of it than he did. He did.
Long bus ride.
Yeah, true. Interesting contrast in this game, I thought, watching it back, because Giants spent most of the time with essentially 2 4s in the 4 and 5 position, and Leicester obviously always have a 5 on the court at all times. So you got that slight trying to turn your strength into their weakness, or vice versa.
You're absolutely right. I mean, that's actually the thing that kind of stood out, because Manchester made a ton of jump shots early. Primarily the
William Lee
and
against his
made
old
a
club.
couple as well. And in the meantime, Nelson Henry and particularly Walker were able to go down low and really have their way down low at times and get the Manchester guys into foul trouble. Robertson struggled a little bit, and they needed him really in this game to kind of defend the big bodies. But it was interesting because Lee was able to take Nelson Henry off the dribble as well, and Lee does have that length whereby he can kind of play the 5. He played a little bit of the 5 when he was at Leicester, not much. But if Rob ever needed to go small, he was the one who played at the 5, Whether he can do it for a whole game at that level is a different, that level of physicality is slightly different. But that it was intriguing. I thought Manchester were what they are, which is a team that can make a shot from anywhere at any point. But they're going to take the first shot. They're taking the first shot or the second shot. And I thought everything in this game was a little bit reminiscent of last year for me watching at the arena. But everything flowed through Fletcher. He got the ball to everybody to shoot the ball. And if it wasn't him getting them the ball, and he looked, by the way, I thought he looked 100 times better. He looked in better shape. He looks ready. He looks ready to go, to be honest. If it wasn't him getting them the ball, and I thought it rather kind of slowed down a little bit, and they struggled when he wasn't in the game. But he's got 5 shooters there. Well, actually, Robertson's not a shooter, but everybody else is a shooter. And the bigs in particular, that gives them space to get to the rim as well. So early on, they kind of really punched Leicester in the mouth with their athleticism. and with their shot making from that position, the 4 and the 5 in particular, and then Fletcher made a couple of threes, but they never really, to me, demonstrated a kind of a commitment to getting stops that they were going to need. They didn't take Leicester out of anything, and we remember what a good player Zach Jackson is. You know, we remember what an important player Zach Jackson is.
11-2 Manchester started. Jackson then had 7 points. Washington also had a 3 as Leicester came back to even the game up. The bench unit took them from 4 down to 4 up at the end of the first quarter. Jackson and McKenzie hit threes in a 10-1 run to 41-29 in the second. But the Giants came back 5 points from Green, 12-2 run, tied the game at 47. And then Adekoya and Whelan hitting threes to give Leicester the lead at halftime.
Yeah, Green. I mean, Green is the one, isn't he? Because Green was +6 in this game, you know, and they lost by 12. And he played 27 minutes, so they lost 30 minutes. He didn't play by 20. Now, even accounting for the fact he was in at the run at the beginning, you know, he's a matchup problem for everybody. You know, he can score. He scores every which way, and he has this kind of effervescent kind of enthusiasm about him, the way that he plays. Occasionally it kind of topples over. But you know, one of those old Milton Keynes players. He's basically one of Vince's type. And he gave Leicester a significant problem. But what struck me was, you know, if you take out Thornton, you actually have basically a bunch of guys who know how to play with each other. You know, and it's not a bunch of guys who know how to play with each other with one guy who doesn't know who's touching the ball a lot, which makes a big difference. And you might not think, it doesn't mean Thornton's not good, it doesn't mean he's not making plays, but it doesn't, you didn't have, I thought, see the level of comfort offensively that the Riders players had with each other. And in relation to getting shots for Jackson and Whelan and Loving, that's critical for them because they're going to get points inside from the big guys. They're going to get stuff from Connor and Kimball most likely, but what kind of good looks can they get for those other guys? Because they will, you know, they're very efficient scorers. And I didn't think Manchester ever committed to running them off the line.
Well, there was a spell early in the third quarter where they helped off Whelan, and then they left him open on the next play, which I thought was suboptimal defensive choice.
Dirk went over a screen from memory and went over Flair's screen and didn't get there. And the big, I think it was William Lee, kind of stuck in the middle of the paint, and you just watching Pat Whelan just rise up and shoot it. And it was just like, you get an idea when a team is absolutely, you know, committed to shutting somebody down. I didn't think they were. No. I think they thought we can score with anyone, we can run with anyone. We're going to run you off the court. Problem is that the secret really is that Leicester are actually a better offensive team than they are a defensive team at the moment. They actually play, the defense is sound, that's what it always has been, but they're not outstanding. They're not what they were 3 or 4 years ago defensively. Offensively, they're incredible. They're like the Spurs. They move the ball, they get the ball. They get shots wherever they want them, and it's only if they lose it's because they miss shots. But defensively, they're vulnerable because as the talent level goes up, teams are making shots on them and able to attack on them, and because they have either Nelson Henry or Walker in the game at all times, that means they're basically in what we call drop coverage for screen and roll, which means the guards having to fight over, and there's always a shot there to get. You've just got to be good enough to knock it down. And I think Manchester thought that they could run with them, but actually Leicester are a better offensive team than Manchester. Manchester got more shot makers, what you'd call tough shot makers, but Leicester get better shots. And I thought that's what happened in this game. I thought it just as the game went on, Leicester got easier shots. And all it needs is, in a game like that, 3 or 4 stops a couple of times in a row, out and running, and suddenly a 2-point game becomes a 15-point game. And if you can't stop them, then there's no way back.
Yeah, well, Whelan had 8, Jackson had another 6, Leicester had a 20-4 run to 77-60, and that was basically it. I mean, I thought Leicester were a little sloppy in the fourth quarter, but Manchester didn't make any inroads.
Yeah, I mean, Vince, I was a bit surprised at Vince because he sat Fletch down at the beginning of the fourth quarter when they were down 18, right? And at that point, you know, Fletch actually had a really significant impact on that game on their offense. And I think he stayed out until they were about 5 minutes to go, and it was a 14-point game or something like that. Came out of the timeout. But you know, my view in games like that is that if you're down 18 at the beginning of the fourth, you've got a 3-minute window.
Yeah.
And if you're not down by 10 with 3 minutes, if you've not chopped it halfway into that almost straight away, then the game is gone.
Yeah.
It's not happening. You know, I mean, maybe there's probably a game in your record book somewhere where it tells I'm wrong. You know,
But Leopard's Towers is the one. Oh no, wait, they didn't. No, they did it all at the beginning as well. So
yeah, you know, it's because to come back from something like that, you need momentum, and you need to take away the other team's comfort level that we're going to win.
Yeah.
So you've got to do it early.
Yeah.
Even if you make a couple of plays and you're still down 14 with 5 minutes to go, the other team's still thinking, we're okay, we're good. You know, and so they're then taking good decisions, not getting harassed, not getting flustered, not getting in their head, and you're doing it. So I was surprised he kept that up for that long. At that point, I think I'd have run him for another 3 or 4 minutes to see what was there. And if the game's done, then you just sit him down, you know, get his rest for Sunday. Because I thought he was really important to them in that game offensively, just in relation to the plays that he was making. And I didn't see anybody else there who was able to really help them. I don't think Nick Lewis had much impact in the game. He's kind of their tertiary scorer that they need.
Just to clean up the foul, no foul call, because somebody did text me and go, "What was that all about? They cancelled a foul. How did that happen?" So I had a look. At it. Basically, there's a foul that Steve Ellis calls on Zach Jackson. I think there's about 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. And you can't see the foul because the camera is zoomed close in on Fletcher, who's on the baseline about to inbound the ball. And then it comes out and you can see Steve calls the foul on Zach Jackson. And then Simon Unsworth comes over to him. They have a conversation and then they cancel the foul. And it's a London ball from the end. And Fletcher, I think, was trying to talk about unsportsmanlike or something, whatever.
Well, it would be unsportsmanlike. The ball wasn't in bounds, wouldn't it?
No, only in the last 2 minutes of the game. The last 2 minutes of the game. But actually, because there was a close-up on Fletcher, what you see is stood right next to him is Simon Unsworth with the ball in his hand. And he actually bounces it as the whistle is blown on court. Well, if the ball is dead, you can't call a foul. You can call an unsportsmanlike foul. You can disqualify somebody and you can call a technical foul. But if the ball is dead, you cannot call a foul. It's in the rules. The rules basically says they have to disregard any foul that is committed while the ball is dead. And until the ball is handed to Fletcher, the ball is dead. Once Fletcher gets his hands on it, then you can call a foul. But you can't call a foul while the referee's got the ball. So the referee's had a conversation about it, and Simon obviously said, I've not given him the ball there, so you can't have that foul. So they just cancelled it. And
there's also in this game, there was another throw the ball, the player incident, wasn't there, with Green?
Yeah, Green,
whoever was inbounding it, Loving,
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, and that was called as an immediate tech, and I mean, I'd like to know where the line is for that, because you know it's equivalent to me of pushing. If you throw a ball at somebody's face, that's equivalent to hitting their face. You throw a ball at their chest quite hard, which it was. It was being done with a point. He wasn't returning the basketball.
No, he wasn't.
You know, and that's a value decision for the referee to make. But if you do that, then again, that's, you know, in football terms, that's kind of violent conduct. You know, and we've seen incidences already, and we've seen one ball in the face, which was just a technical. And I don't think that was probably enough for disqualification, but you know, you can't be doing that.
No.
You know,
it was to me that was a technical and it's the right call.
But there's a line there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And also the other foul that we didn't talk over.
Oh yeah, Connor. Yeah.
Despite my mum's protestations on Twitter, that was definitely an unsportsmanlike foul.
Yeah, I think. I mean, to be fair, it was one of those ones where, if it was a football match, it would have been a red card for endangering the safety of a player. I'm not sure what he was trying to do. I'm pretty sure.
I think what he's done is he's run along and he's seen Fletcher coming in front of him and he's tried to jump out of the way, because I've seen him do this a million times. But Fletcher actually went the way he wasn't expecting him to go, So therefore, he ended up on top of him. He was expecting him to go back the other way, and
I've been around.
It did look mad.
I've been around them for like 7 or 8 years, where they've been moving each other time after time after time. And it's not in his nature. But it did look a bit mad. And as I say, a football terms, it would actually be a red card, but we don't have that in basketball, endangering the safety or anything like that. And for a disqualification, it has to be a lot worse than that. But it has to be called.
It's either the transition version of it, or it's not, or it's aggressively, it's over aggressively not playing at the ball. There's probably 3 boxes it could tick on the unsportsmanlike, so it has to be. Whelan with 20 points, 7 of 14 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3-point range, 5 rebounds as well. Jackson 8 of 14 shooting for his 20 points. Nelson Henry 14. Walker 11 plus 22 in the game. Mackenzie was plus 17 in the game. Leicester 38 67 shooting, 13 of 27 from 3, and they out rebounded them 47.
I think they got like a combination of like 25 and 15 or something from Nelson Henry and Walker or something like that from that position on very high percentages, which over 40 minutes, which is always going to impact games positively.
Lee, I think it's the first time the Riders fans have actually seen him, despite the fact he played there for a year, because I think he was there in the COVID year, wasn't he? And they didn't see him. Right. 23 points, 9 of 21 shooting, 7 rebounds. Green, 21 points, 8 of 13 shooting. Fletcher, 16 points and 9 assists. So let's come to today. And as I say, at least they were staggered, so they didn't finish at the same time, but it was quite a lot to take in.
It was.
The easiest game to watch was the first game to watch, because it had an hour of its own time. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best game to watch.
Basically, it was over by the time that hour finished. It was actually quite. At that point, I was thinking the stars were aligning.
Yeah,
to be honest.
So it was Plymouth City Patriots 91, Surrey Scorchers 68. There's no Antonio Williams still for Plymouth. There was no Ray, and obviously Lawrence is still out. But Carly and Wanless were on the stats, but didn't play. So I didn't. To be fair, I wasn't looking to see if they were on the bench, but I assume
Wanless was definitely on the bench, because I saw him in the warm-up. The camera focused on him. I don't know about Bacali. I didn't see him, but I didn't look for him either. But definitely Wanless was there.
It started all right for Surrey. They had ones from Jack Domney and Carey, and they were 19-12 ahead. But after a timeout, Plymouth got the next 8 points to lead 20-19, and then in the second quarter, they had a run where Bell and Simons hit some threes, 14-3 run, no field goals for 5.5 minutes for Surrey, and that was pretty much the decisive spell of the game.
Surrey. Firstly, that timeout, the difference before and after that timeout when it was 19-12 was that I'm not sure if Plymouth had a scouting report on Luke Buzumbru, but if they did, they certainly weren't following it, and they immediately were after that timeout, because 3 times he got to the rim, 3 times he finished comfortably, 3 times there was no help, and 3 times they were pressing up on him on the perimeter. After that, they were going under every screen and they were challenging him to shoot the 3, and that basically took away a comfortable source of Surrey's offense. Without Jalen Ray to make shots, with the trip down to Plymouth, the unusual environment in Plymouth, the hard floor, etc. They got nothing out of Dobbs or Wang in relation to wing scoring, and basically it was Jack Domney in the post where they couldn't guard him, and it was Buzumbru attacking the rim. And once Jack Domney sat down, and Plymouth took away Buzumbru, and once you take away his penetration, you take away the ability to drive and kick as well. Offense came very, very difficult for Surrey. And that's partly because of the bodies that they have missing. Johnson, the new guy, is basically playing as a 5, so he's kind of out sharing minutes with Jack Domney, and Lloyd likes to have 4 out 1 in all the time. A little bit like Rob, he likes to have the 1 center and and the 4 shooters at all times. But you've got to be able to create those shots. It's one thing having Andrew Lawrence run the screen and roll, creating those shots. It's another thing if they're just going to go under on Luke Buzumbru and say, Luke, you got to make a shot. before we're going to guard you the way that he's going to allow you to create shots for everybody else. So that was a good adjustment by Plymouth, albeit I'm pretty sure PJ would have told him not to behave like that in the first place. So an adjustment that probably shouldn't have been necessary. And in relation to Plymouth, yeah, I mean, they're aggressive. They're aggressive at home. They have a guy, obviously, in Richard who can score if he touches the basketball inside. Hawthorne made a real impact in this game.
Yeah, he did.
Real positive and energetic impact. He made a couple of dunks, blocks, running all over the court. Just really, really impactful. It's what they need from him. Bell also is a lot of length and is a bit of a rim runner, that type of thing as well. So you put all that together with the aggression that they get and the fact that they make more shots. I think they'll make more shots at home than they do away. Then all it took was a bit of Troy Simons in the third quarter and the game was done.
Yeah, he hit 3 threes early in the third quarter. It was 56-37, and that was all she wrote. Did you turn off or did you stay to the end?
I'm afraid I
Oh, you missed the 2 buzzer beaters.
Two buzzer
beaters at the end. So Surrey had the ball. They're coming down. There was a couple of seconds left, and Wang threw one from, I don't know, about 35 feet or something, goes in for 3, but there's still a second or 2 left. Inbound it to Dusha, who from 3/4 court threw it back the other way, and he went in for 3.
There was no fights, was there? They all shook
No.
hands.
But two buzzer beating 3s at the end of a 30-point game.
It's pretty impressive.
Worth hanging on to the end for.
Yeah, I mean, my overall on it was, Surrey still need a lead guard. Obviously, without Ray, it made it even worse because that was kind of a scoring guard for them. But I still think they need at least one more. They need a lead guard. I think it'll do Bazumbro a hell of a lot of good to be playing a lot of point guard, and it'll accelerate his development. But it's going to be hard for them to win if he's basically their only real point guard. And so it'll be interesting to see if Lloyd and Dan find a way to bring in an American guard or any guard.
Or if Lawrence comes back.
Because
I was told a few weeks ago it wasn't as bad, and he should be back in a few weeks, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Who told me that might not have been reliable.
He's played a handful of games in 3 years. So it's so you're putting your as a GM, you really praying to the Lord, to say, "Oh, give me some help for this guy." But I don't think it's anything you can necessarily hang your hat on. And in relation to Plymouth, I mean, they've got a nice little rhythm going with Dusha running the point, and obviously Williams isn't playing. Williams is very different when he plays to the way that Dusha is. So no one's actually said what his injury is. I don't think I've not seen it talked about or mentioned at any point. So obviously the official.
I think it was knock in training was as much as.
So the official Secrets Act is still working down in Plymouth, Devonport. So we don't actually know what's wrong with him, but it's now been like 2.5 weeks. So you think there's probably something not quite right. So when he eventually comes back, there'll be a readjustment for them. But at the moment, they've all kind of got a nice little kind of rule about the way that they're playing. Whether they'll have enough to beat teams, certainly on the road, and certainly, teams who have a bit more scoring punch than Surrey, that's probably going to be their test.
Simons with 24, 6 of 13 for 3, 6 assists. Brandon 16.7 assists. Bell 16.7 rebounds. They were 11 of 28 from 3, 31 points off 20 turnovers is incredible rate. Wang with 16 and 7. Carey with 15 points off the bench. Just for contrast, they had 7 points off 11 turnovers. So.
Yeah, I thought Carey was a lone bright spot, really, what I could see in the game. I didn't think they got much. They got nothing from Dobbs. I didn't think they got much from Wang until obviously I'd turned off, and not much from Johnson. So you need some production from the Americans. We've
probably spent more time on a blowout than we probably ought to. This could be a long one here. Just tip people off mid workout.
I don't want the 3 Surrey fans who listen to this change. Me talking about, me and you talking about, how they've disappointed again. I know they want to hear it because it's not something we've talked about much. No, to be fair, they got 2/3 of a team at the moment.
Yeah, they are. So let's move to the copper box. London Lions 91, Manchester Giants 83. Kufos was back for London, but still no Decker. Giants shooting 3 of 11 in the early stages, all 9 points for Green. They were 17-9 down after 6 minutes, and it was a slow start. You were wondering whether Manchester could get any offense really other than Green.
Yeah, again, it's London's starting
Defense,
five.
yeah.
Starting five defenses. It's high level because of the length, because of the size that they've got. And as you say, it was only Green who made a couple of plays, but they were tough plays. There was a turnaround jumper. There was a face-up three. There was an offensive rebound. There's nothing easy at all.
No.
And clearly they were focused in on Dirk. They were aware of Dirk, obviously. And actually, it was young Nate Robinson who came in, made some shots that I could see, which allowed Manchester to.
Well, before that, legend Robertson, he had a massive impact. I mean, it's 4 points and 5 rebounds, but in 5 minutes, and that was actually what pulled them back in, because they had that spell where Van Oostrom took charges almost back to back against Fletcher and Robertson, and Williams was also on 2 fouls. So too was Nelson and Zubcic, but it's more of an impact on Manchester. And Vince obviously had to make a decision. He kept Williams out there, but he didn't. He took Robertson and Fletch out of the game to protect them. They didn't play very much in the first half. So you need some. I know you're not subbing Robertson in for Fletch, but you need somebody to come off the bench and make an impact. And actually, he was the guy, I thought, in the first.
Well, he was, and there's 2 things about that, of course. One is I think he's a Londoner, so he's playing at home. That always makes a difference. Whether players admit it or not, there's an extra little bit of juice in the stuff. And secondly, it's kind of a game to which he's more suited.
Yeah.
He's playing against 7-footers on the other team, so he's not having to worry about all these little guys. He's not having to worry about going out 30 feet to set screens for some overzealous referee to say, oh, you might have twitched your hip or anything like that, And he's just be able to go down there and go down low and kind of bang, to use the colloquialism, and he did it really well. You're right. I mean, I was neglectful not to mention that, and that combined with London's normal kind of offensive malaise with their second unit, where basically it's Zubcic, who's a guy who's really looking to score, and they're not getting any off. That is good. It might not be an issue in the BBL. It might not never get to be an issue in the EuroCup when Decker comes back and everybody else moves down a spot into that second unit and the rotations shorten. But there are some kind of periods of time whereby their offense is a bit ugly, and I'm looking at as I say, Queally, Suluade and Van Oostrom, and thinking, well, if these guys beat me from the 3-point line, I'll live.
Yeah.
And if you've got all 3 of them there at the same time, if I'm coach on the other side, I'm just saying, look, I'm almost boxing one in Zubcic. He's not catching it. You guys prove you can make shots, and I'm not going to disrespect you, but I don't want him shooting it. I want you guys shooting it. And that kind of made it a bit of a half-court game, which meant that Manchester were able to get some stuff going, and the ball moved a little bit, and Robinson knocked down some shots.
Yeah, so Nelson had hit back-to-back threes to put London up 5, and then Robinson, as you say, made some shots to get Giants back in it. And then Zubcic had 7 points in 4 minutes, including 5 on one unsportsmanlike play where Lee had bitten on a head fake and landed on him, and he made the free throws and then hit a corner 3, and they were up 13 at that point, 44-31. But credit to the Giants, they scored the next 11 points to cut it back to a 2-point game and bring it back to, essentially score for score then in the third quarter.
Yeah, I think the long rest that he'd been able to give Fletcher and Robertson actually helped in doing that. Kept them fresh, because it's tough to keep going up against those long guards. But yeah, and it was nip and tuck, wasn't it? And we were all thinking, well, can it? Can it?
And then when Fletcher gets the reverse 4-point play with a free throw off a bench tee and then a very long 3-pointer, and they go up by 2, and then he hits another 3 and they're up by 5, 70 to 75, having scored the first 9 points. You're thinking, well, Manchester might do this here.
Well, I'm thinking this could be one of another one of the Pantheon games for Fletcher because you've seen it happen primarily in difficult environments. Particularly obviously at Leicester in cup finals, that type of thing, whereby bang, he's produced the goods. He's effectively won the game for his team. And he had that bit between his teeth. You could kind of see it when he was talking a little bit to the bench when he made that second three from the corner. I was like, oh, here we go. I've seen this before. It was, I think, only the fact that I think Ruben made another huge shot when they were down.
He tied the game at 81, big three, yeah.
Yeah, he's made, and he just doesn't look like he's going to miss. It's like he's shooting a foul shot, or even if it was a layup. And again, their defense just kind of closed it out. And I think when Lee got hurt, did he go out for the rest of the game, or was he?
Yeah. So Lee scored. You couldn't quite see it on the replay, but I assume he landed on Soko's foot and just rolled his ankle because he ended up on the floor. But the ball isn't dead there, so the referee can't stop the game for an injury. So it plays live, and obviously they run down the other end. It's 5-on-4. Soko gets a dunk. It's 85-83 with that dunk, and as you say, Lee's hobbled off the floor, out injured, and then on the next play they turn it over and Best gets a layup. And then, even though Nelson fouled out, Green misses the three. Best goes to the free throw line. 89-83 with a minute and a half to go, and then there was a block and a turnover, and that was basically the race.
3 possessions, those 4 possessions.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen plenty of teams screw up 5-on-4 breaks before.
Yeah, true.
They got it done, but that's because Luke Nelson made a good decision. It became.
Well, the one thing I would say is I like Best. By the way, we obviously hadn't seen him because of the injury, but he's in both of these games. He's come up with some important plays late on.
That's exactly what was going through my head then when I forgot what I was going to say. That was about a minute ago. I was thinking that. Because he's new, obviously, because he got injured early, and he's come back, and you see why they signed him. Because he seems to have a bit of that clutch gene. The coach knows him because he played for him in Canada.
Yeah.
So you'll see him up front, so that's always important. So he trusts him, and trust is critical. And he has enough size to be able to defend. He doesn't do dumb things, and he's knocked down enough shots when it matters for him to be on the floor. So he's
made free throws at the end of games as well.
So absolutely agree with that. He's kind of that extra kind of silent piece that no one's really going to talk about, but we just have. Job. We do. So they just had a couple of shots. Maybe if Corey Johnson knocks down a couple of shots at the end there, maybe maybe they stay close. But I think it's going to take one of those kind of London at 3/4 pace halfway through the fourth quarter, and then a team just to go off and make a few threes. And I think to be fair, and the best chance of that might have already happened because Decker's still sat on the sideline.
Yeah.
I think it's exponentially harder for that to beat them that way when Decker's on the court. 7-0. And then
Zubcic 22.7 of 12 shooting in 20 minutes. That's efficiency for you. Kufos 16 and 9. Soko 15 and 7. Green led the Giants 22.7 rebounds. Fletcher 15.7 assists. Williams had 11. Let's go to Sheffield, where the Sharks beat.
No, I didn't. This game didn't happen.
Did it?
No, this game didn't. This game
broke down, did it?
It's been expunged from the records already.
From the records.
This game.
Okay, so
this as I could tolerate.
Sheffield did not win their 12th game in the last 13 league games against Newcastle.
I think they did more than win it.
87-62, the Sharks won. Channel Banks back for Sheffield. Obviously, Newcastle have strengthened since they played last week. Was it last week? Yeah, last week when the Sharks won that game. And Eagles started 8-2, but Sheffield came straight back 11-2 to lead. And then, it was probably not until the second quarter, but things started to fall off. The wheels started to come away for the Eagles a little bit. Yeah,
it did. Offensively, it's the same. There's almost a rinse and repeat of the last game. They struggled to create any offense. They had no interior scoring that you could talk about. Defoe scored a little bit, but that was primarily 18-foot jumpers. They ended up with 2 offensive rebounds in the whole game, which, given the amount of shots that they missed, is remarkable. Which suggests that the players aren't where they need to be. They don't know when they're attacking. I mean, Bristol generally have 2 offensive rebounds on the first possession. It's true.
It is,
And Sheffield, I think, basically they knew what their strengths were. They played to their strengths, and they got the ball into. In this game, it was Oguniemi particularly, but also Delpesh, and then Delpesh stepped out and made a couple of shots as well. And they guarded Newcastle properly, and Newcastle couldn't make the 13 threes that they made on Friday night. In reality,
they were two of 13 from 3-point range in the first half. Newcastle.
Yeah, they had some open looks, but and Johnson actually made the first possession of the game. So 2 of 13 actually equals 1 of 12 if you go past that. But Sheffield basically shut them down. Now, Kyle Johnson didn't play in this game, and Ubiara didn't really play 10 minutes, but he played them at the end when the game was done, primarily. So it was very much kind of what they had last time, and it wasn't good enough.
No. Sharks with a 12-2 start to the second quarter to 36-23. There was a timeout halfway through that run as well, but couldn't stop it. And really, I mean, just Sheffield looked. It was one of those games where, because there were multiple games going on, it was easy to look away from this because Sheffield just looked comfortable. The Eagles.
That wasn't the reason it was easy for me to look away from it.
But they did momentarily get it to single figures. At
they
54.
got it back to 9 in the third quarter. That's right. And
but then Sheffield got the next 5 points from the free throw line, and they were 14 up again.
There's some. That's the 2 things. I mean, offense is obviously the thing that stands out with Newcastle. And again, sorry, Sheffield fans, I'm talking about Newcastle more because, at the end of the day, they're more of the story because they lose by 25 as opposed to a team that wins by 25. So that's the way it is. The 2 things that their offense is obviously an issue in relation to do they have enough guys who have the mentality just to put the ball in the basket. At times I thought they were overpassing a little bit, and they needed to have somebody who was willing to attack. But more than that, they have to defend without fouling. And I thought, particularly inside, they got marmalized in relation to their inability to defend without fouling. And that's
31 fouls.
31 fouls.
31 fouls, Newcastle,
I didn't know that. That was just a feel. I didn't look at that stat at all. That's just a feel I got from the game. And if you foul, then basically that's probably 31 fouls. So you're working on the base. Even if say 3 or 4 of them are offensive, and there was again a couple more little hip twitch offensive screens called, which do me head in. But even if you say 3 or 4 of those fouls are offensive, that's say 20. And you have 4 in each quarter. If they spread them out over each quarter, that's probably 11 or 12 fouls come in the penalty.
Well, Sheffield were 29 of 37 from the free throw line.
Well, there you go. So so you're probably guessing that there wasn't that many shooting fouls in the game. So you probably get out. So your estimate is what 20 foul shots in the penalty. Well, that's just unsustainable. That's just 3 points. And on top of that, it's worse because you can't get out. It means they're setting the defense up. So you can't get down the other end and start, and get any momentum or anything like that. And defending without fouling, I've talked about it before. It's a skill. It's a critical skill in the game, and they haven't really shown.
What I would say, because we focused on Newcastle scoring 62 because of their offensive troubles, but they did have, I know it was at home, but they did have 89 on Friday. So there is some credit to Sheffield and the way they've defended Newcastle.
Oh no, Sheffield are
twice in 2 weeks as well.
I'm going to get to Sheffield in a minute because Sheffield are a really good defensive team, no question. They had Cheshire at 49. Now that was a Cheshire before Evans, etc. But you hold a professional team to 49, right? It doesn't matter who they are. Then you're a really solid defensive team, no question about it. And they've always been under a team, but they've been a team which helps under the basket probably more than any team in the league and challenges you to make the extra pass and then rotates out. And I thought their help defense in this game was exceptional. They don't allow much one-on-one in the post. They challenged teams to make the extra pass, and also they didn't allow Hamlet any particular lanes to kind of slither around the rim, and challenged Newcastle to make shots, which Newcastle couldn't do. And so I thought the game plan, I know that obviously Sheffield haven't had a game in between, so all they've had the chance to do is to watch that tape, focus on that tape, and say these are the things that we're going to do a bit better than we did last time, which doesn't happen much in pro basketball, because normally if your teams are playing back to back, then they're playing in series, so both teams are the same. Obviously Newcastle had an enormous game against Bristol at home, 0-4 on Friday night, so you imagine that Sheffield have just kind of like laying wait for them and made the adjustments that possibly Newcastle didn't have the time to do because they were focused on Bristol. But their defense is really good, and they're going to be a tough out for teams. The issue that they're going to have is going to be whether they can score enough in the half court when it gets to half court games. I mean, that's it. And if they can, then they're going to be, they're 3-4 at the moment. They're going to be well over 500 by the end of the season. I think they probably can, but that really depends on how well their bigs play.
Yeah,
because against Newcastle, they have the advantage in the bigs. That today, both games, they've Coke, Delpesh, and Oganyemi have combined for 30 plus points. I think they had 23 at halftime in this game. I didn't check the number at the end. And they're all good shots. And if those guys can score like that against the other teams, then they're going to be very tough to beat. However, if they struggle to score, then they're going to be eating up possessions.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And they're not at the level of Walker and Nelson Henry, for instance, in relation to efficiency yet. They might get there. If Coke can put a consistent season together when he's like that, where Atiba can do what Rob does with those big guys and get the same level of production. If he's able to do that, then they're going to be as good as anybody apart from London, no question. So I think it's going to be their bigs that really determine how far they go and how good they're going to be. I think it's going to be the same with Newcastle. I expect Newcastle to be looking for another one. I think they need at least one more big guy, because at the moment they can't compete with 2 offensive rebounds, and they can't compete committing 31 fouls. I mean, you can't win a game like that. It's just it's unsustainable.
Oganyemi, Banks, and Delpesh all had 14 points each, all off the bench. Oganyemi also had 11 rebounds. They had 6 players score 10 or more. Sheffield, by contrast, Newcastle had 2. Varner with 13 and 6. Hamlet had 10 points. Eagles were 22 of 53 shooting, 4 of 18 from 3. And I gave Sheffield's 29 of 37 free throws. Newcastle were 14 of 17. So you can see there's a 15
point difference. Yeah, and the other thing is that, that's a combined, again, being a bit Newcastle centric, you have to combine 32 less shots in 2 games. So Bristol shot 21 more shots than they did. Sheffield shot 11 more shots and another 15 more foul shots. So you're gonna have to shoot. The numbers are against you. You're gonna have to shoot an outlier like 13 of 23 from the 3-point line to win those games. So they've got to sort out the possession game. That means less fouls and better looking after the glass.
So as I say, 12-1 in the last 13 league games, Sheffield against Newcastle. As Aaron Rodgers would say, they own you.
Oh, me?
Yeah, no, that's what he would say to the crowd.
Oh, right, I was going to say, yeah, they own you. Yeah, what was the score in the 10 years before that? Anyway,
yeah.
Seriously though, they do. I mean, they do have Newcastle's number at the moment.
Yeah.
Now it's certainly they did last year. I know about 5 or 6-0 last year.
I did notice it because I saw that on the Sheffield Twitter, and I did notice it said championship games, which made me think, oh, they must have lost to the Wing Cup playoffs. There was obviously the playoff game,
and the playoff game, which has been Gordon tipping it in. So yeah, they do. But I mean, to be honest, this year is it's basically a new Newcastle team.
Yeah.
So it's not really. It's the consistency.
It's in the books, mate. You can't draw lines in the books. It's where
Fair
it is.
enough. Yeah, you can't in your books. True.
So let's go to Glasgow, where the Caledonia Gladiators beat the Leicester Riders 89 points to 81. Thornton didn't travel for Leicester. As I said, I didn't think Jackson was moving as freely today as he looked on Friday. Again, this was another one in the background where it was easier to be drawn towards the London game than this one, because it just looked like two teams trading scores through the first half.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it did, and I kept an eye on it. Didn't really get the flow of it, but I kept an eye on it, and I think Ali Fraser started out and was aggressive and made a 3 early, and Caledonia got Sloan going early, got them running off screens, and they were ready to play. You know, they were young guys again.
Talking about defense, I didn't think Connor was at his usual level. I know he's been injured recently, but I thought there were a few shots that he just he would have dealt with better.
It was a couple of things. I mean,
and he didn't shoot the ball. I don't think he took a single shot either.
No. He wasn't in the game at the end, which was kind of the key for me. He wasn't in the game at the end. He's not right, you know, because otherwise he'd be in the game at the end.
And they needed his defense against Sloan. Yeah.
Can't draw lines in the book though, Dan.
Yeah. No, you can't draw lines in. No, exactly. Yeah.
No, seriously. They did, and you know, Caledonia didn't play on Friday. Leicester did play Manchester. Leicester had Leicester 1 and 2. Leicester coming on an emotional game on Friday because it's their home opener. You know, they need to win. The pressure will have been ratcheted up to win that game, just like the Newcastle Bristol game. And then you got to get in the bus and you got to travel down, and you've got Jackson. You don't know how Jackson travel up. Sorry, you don't know how Jackson and Washington are going to react to playing those minutes. You know, having to play against Fletcher and Cohen, basically give of their best efforts to win that game. On top of that, you've got Pucker Pies doing their best. No, seriously, guys, don't sue me. I'm sure it's not you. You know, I'm sure it's Rob's. You know, spaghetti bolognese or something, old Italian recipe that he had the new guy around for a meal with, or something like that. You tell me. But you got him out as well, so you are slight bodies down. Also, you've kind of got a system, and I've talked about this a little bit before with Sloan, when they played London, and he's a guy who is what I'd call a drop coverage killer. If you're not in front of him when he comes off that screen, then he's going to pull up and shoot it. If you are in front of him, then he's going to look to go past you and finish at the rim. Okay, so the way that Cheshire did it was because they'd seen him in the pre-season, of course, was that what they did was they pressured him up on the line of the screen. So they had two guys come out, and they've made him uncomfortable, didn't give any straight lines to the basket, didn't give any looks at the rim. Leicester can't really do that. It's not the way they defend, not with Nelson, Henry and Walker. And because you're short of bodies, it's basically one of those two guys has to be in the game, even if they're thinking about going small with Adekoya. It's very difficult because the rotation isn't there. Yeah. And Sloan, I thought, got into a rhythm early a couple of times coming off screens as a 2 guard. And then after that, he was comfortable. And once he's comfortable, he's a tough cover because he's knocking down shots, and their shots look like they're going in. And when it became a shootout, and it did become a shootout this game, ultimately between Whelan and Sloan, with a little bit of Adams thrown in, and that, as we've said, that favours the home team. It always does.
There was a spell in the third quarter where I just thought Leicester might be able to get away. They got up 5, and Caledonia missed a few shots, but they were able to get offensive rebounds. And there was one where they kicked out for 3, and it was like, if that misses, and Leicester go down and score. And it was one of those where there were just little bits that if Leicester could have got defensive rebound or two in the third quarter, they might have had a bit
Yeah,
more of a lead than the 2 points they had going into the fourth.
again, they got really good minutes out of Onwas doing the little things.
Yeah.
You know, a charge on Jackson, which I don't imagine really helped Jackson's back much.
No.
He's a big wall, he's a wall to run into. And, you know, he made the odd shot and then got an offensive rebound and that type of thing. And they just made enough hustle plays to keep themselves close and shots to keep themselves close. Leicester executed like they always do. They executed well offensively. You know, they just, you know, particularly near the end, they were knocking, even when they're behind, you think they're still going to knock down open shots when they're open.
Well, let's get to the end, because that Sloan has an and-1, 3:48 to go. They're up 5, 78-73. Then Leicester come down, Whelan strings a 3, 78-76. Leicester get a stop. They come back the other way. I think it was Nelson Henry batted the ball out to Whelan on an offensive rebound. Yeah. Another 3 stringed, 78-79. And you're thinking, oh, here come Leicester again, doing what they do down the stretch. But then Sloan comes and makes a 3 the other way immediately within 10 seconds to put Gladiators back in front. Yeah,
and that's why he was comfortable. You know, he was comfortable the whole game, and that, you know, that ability then to get to his spot. And I don't think Leicester were able to kind of get him off his spot. And then it comes down to who makes the most shots. I don't think Glasgow and Caledonia were great defensively, because every time I watched the last 3 minutes, Leicester's offensive possessions, Whelan appeared to be open. Not just when he had the ball, but also when he didn't get the ball. And I don't think they reacted overly well to what Leicester were doing. But they just kept scoring. They
did. So Mackenzie missed a 3. Adams' drive made it 83-79, 131 to go. Adekoya got an offensive rebound, but then a miscommunication threw it straight out of bounds. 48 seconds to go. A nice post move from Tape to make it 85-79. And basically Leicester have to score here, but they defended really well. They wouldn't let Whelan get open. Nelson Henry had to shoot the 3, missed it, but it went out of bounds for a Leicester ball. And then this time they got Mackenzie a shot. He missed it, and that was the game.
Yeah. They're not creaking Leicester, because they're going to win about 4 in a row. I don't know who they're playing next, but they're going to win the next 4 or 5 in a row, because their system is still there and their guys are still knocking down the same shots. But they don't quite have the same defensive capabilities at this point in time. That's, you know, that's been their separating factor. Offensively, everybody in this league, apart from Newcastle at the moment, can score. Everybody can score. Defensively, Leicester's ability to kind of strangle teams and take them away out of what they do has been the difference. And they don't quite have that at the moment. They need to, I think they get them some bodies back. They integrate Thornton, that's fine, but you know, not having Washington healthy, you know, is really, you know, it's a massive thing. Even Jackson, they've got another guy for, but Washington is the guy who comes in and digs them out of holes week after week and has done for years, or provides kind of the cherry on the icing on the cake. And he's going to need to be healthy, because every team you play in this league is there's a lot of guys in this league. Well, not a lot of guys like Sloan, but everyone's got a player who can attack. You know, everyone's got one who can go, and they're struggling to contain at the moment.
So I've just looked it up. Leicester have Bristol at home on the 28th, away to Sheffield on the 30th, at home to Cheshire on the 4th of November, away to Plymouth on the 6th of November. And then I think it's the international break. So the other side of that, they're at home to Sheffield on the 18th of November.
To win 4 is tough. To win all 4 is tough. I mean, I do think Bristol will be in, obviously the old Bristol one. And Bristol will be on the road, but such a relentless team, Bristol, you don't know. And then Sheffield, that'll be a test of Sheffield. That's next week, isn't it? So that'll be a really good test for Sheffield, and to see where Sheffield are at, because, you know, if Leicester have a little bit of, if Leicester continue to have their injury issues, and there's a little bit of blood in the water, not a lot, but there's a little bit there, and it's kind of, you know, Sheffield never beat Leicester, so it's a, you know, so it's a real kind of litmus test for Sheffield. as to where they're at. And at this point, I'm not kind of overly fussed with records. I mean, just because Sheffield are 4-3 and Manchester are 3-4, sorry, and Manchester are 4-3, that doesn't mean that's the way it's going to be the end of the year.
No.
It depends on how teams are going to grow into the season. And I think, you know, if you look at the trajectories, you know, Sheffield have a chance to kind of get up there, but to do that, you know, they have to be looking at competing with Leicester. All the teams have to be looking at competing with Leicester. Competing with London's different, but competing with Leicester, particularly when Leicester are hobbled, that's what they have to be looking to do. So we'll see where we go.
Let's go to the final. Oh, did I give the scores? I didn't give the scores there. Sloane, 36 points, 12 of 21 shooting, 5 of 10 from 3. Adams, 17. Onwas, despite what it says on the stats, had 10. 12 of 23 they were from 3-point range. Whelan, 4 of 8 threes for 22 points. Loving had 20 and Jackson had 10.
Wheeling's playing great. I mean, he plays like an American, you know, an American wing scorer. We don't have many Brits in our league who've done that for a long time. You know, you look at him, you think he's going to score when he catches the basketball. He knows how he's going to score. He knows when he's got the pull up. He knows he can step back, and now he's going to the rim as well, both ways. You know, that's a big thing, I think, for GB.
So, final game of the evening, and they haven't yet brought in the no overtime rule for Sunday night breakdown. So this one went to overtime. Cheshire 74, Bristol Flyers 81. Ollison still out for the Flyers. Super hard to multi-screen when there's no scoreboard on the screen, by the way.
Oh God, yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I gave the first half of this a miss, I'm afraid, because I was too busy with the other two, with the Leicester game and the remnants of the Newcastle game. So sorry, guys, but when I saw it was 33-34, I didn't really think I'd...
No, both teams had a lead of 5 points, but nothing more. Cheshire probably had the lead for longer, looking at the stats. 54-41 going into the fourth quarter. All the other games had finished, and this could then get our undivided attention.
Is that 54-51?
Yeah, 54-51. Did I say 41? Sorry.
Yeah, and it was good. I mean, the lad on commentary, I think Richie McNutt was on commentary. I might be wrong, but he certainly looked like him. His ex-player many years ago, got hurt. Lads on commentary did a good job actually kind of filling in kind of the blanks for those of us who were just dotting around. Also, it's very nice to have a real commentary team at Leicester for once, if I may say. Anyway, so hopefully that's got Rose Treadmill stopped. As he's throwing something at the screen. But no, it was everything that you kind of knew about those teams. They were going back and forwards. Bristol were rebounding everything, not making many shots. I checked on the stats, and you know, Brandon Mayhem was another 0 of 6, and I think he was like one of 15 over the weekend or something. Thomas Bell was scoring inside and being impactful. And for Cheshire, you know, Larry Austin and Marcus Evans were taking turns, and then Mike Ocherobia was cleaning up the difference.
So the start of the fourth quarter, Evans, Daniels, Austin all got to the rim, 60-53, 2.5 minutes into the quarter. That was actually the biggest lead of the game at that point in time. But Bristol came back a 7-2 run, 62-60 with 4.5 to go. But Bell got a cut just above his head and went out. And I was thinking, oh gosh, I hope they stop that soon, because he was playing really well. They couldn't afford to have him off the court for too long.
He got that cut on Friday, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think he had the plaster on Friday at the end of the game, so it's maybe been reopened. They needed. Yeah, he's interesting. He really is. Doesn't fit a mold. You know, he's got kind of a cookie-looking shot. He shoots off balance shots, shoots off the wrong leg, spins, turns, whatever, but they go in. You know, so he's a really. I'm not sure he can shoot, but he seems to make enough shots to keep you honest. And he seems to have a good motor and be a good teammate. So he's a really interesting guy. Insofar as interesting, meaning quite good. And King is also interesting because King is actually probably, he played in the G League. He's probably their most independently talented guy, even including Miller. I think King's probably got a higher upside than anybody just with his athleticism. You know, he can shoot tough shots, he can make tough shots, and he can get out in transition as well. And they just kind of wore them down from what I could see.
So 3 minutes to go. Austin with a 3, 65, 60, and Mahan, as you mentioned, was 0 of 6 from 3-point range with 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go, but he made his first one at 2 minutes and 39 seconds and made it 65, 63. Ocharobia then he tried to score at one end, lost his glasses, was trying to stop the game, couldn't stop the game, chased back and ended up fouling Delpesh, which is not necessarily a bad foul. He goes 0 for 2, 2:11 to go, 65, 63 still, but offensive rebound. We've been talking about Bristol and their offensive rebounds, and this time Mahan gets a 4-point play. So he goes 0 for 6, 1 for whatever he was, 15 at that moment in time, and then hits back-to-back threes for 7 points to take them from 5 points down to 2 points up with 1:58 to go.
Yeah, shooter. Damn,
they do.
Keep shooting. Yeah, well, you got to make play. You know, someone's got to make the shots. So
Ocharobia then with a putback off a miss, 60 again, offensive rebounds at that end of the floor as well, 67 apiece. Delpesh putback, 67, 69, 120 to go. Austin ties the game with 2 free throws, and then Anderson blocked a shot at 24 seconds to go. Evans had one go in and out, 26 seconds to go. They're trying to run some clock. Anderson knocks the ball loose, and then they just made a mess of that last play. I think Watson Gale was dribbling it. I think he was trying to wave the screen away. It didn't go away. He was still dribbling around, and they ended up with a shot clock violation, which on the final play, when it's tied, is pretty terrible outcome.
I was pretty astounded that neither of the last 2 possessions Miller touched the ball. You know, I mean, Watson Gale is an aggressive scorer. He clearly likes the movement. But if I'm Mike Miller, I'm saying, hey, rookie, give me the ball, you know, because, you know, they didn't get anything good out of either of those possessions. And you want your best decision maker, you know, with the basketball at that point. I don't think at this point in his career, he is their best decision maker. I think that's Miller, you know, 7 days a week and twice on Sundays. So, and yeah, I mean, to be honest, my immediate fear for him was that Austin was going to steal it. Or Evans was going to steal it, and they were going to make a layup on the buzzer and win the game. Because the way the ball was being dribbled, there was if someone shot the gap, boom, it could be gone. I just didn't think they knew what they were doing. And then the same, but to be fair, the same with Cheshire. They threw the ball into Austin, but you know, you throw the ball into Austin at the top, and the Bristol team knew exactly what was happening, and they were all stood in the way.
So there was a timeout in between, 3.9 seconds on the clock, and they gave it to Austin, and as you say, everybody stood in his way. He lost the ball, and it went to overtime.
Happily,
yes. Nothing much happened in overtime. Both teams struggled to score. 2.5 minutes to go. Bell with the and one to make it 71-74. Bell with the spin move in the paint to make it 71-76, and then Anderson got a good look in the corner and turned it down, and then they ended up with nothing out of that, and I thought that was that.
They did. I mean, the Cheshire team now, as they're constructed, whereby everybody has a pretty specific skill set, you know, and if Jamal gets the ball reversed to him for 3 in the corner, he has to shoot it, because that's come about because Austin or Evans has created that shot, and if he doesn't shoot it or swing it to the next guy who can then shoot it, if he hesitates, it's lost. And I thought that is what happened, because it allowed Bristol's defense to kind of stock up again. I mean, it shows how difficult it is this year. I mean, if we look at the league this year, there are very few rookies to the league. There are a few, but not a lot, rookies to the league outside of London, who've had substantial impacts, particularly at the wing spots. Guards, yes, but outside of the Bristol guys, that's like King and Bell. You know, there's not many wing scorers of the type that we used to see. You know, Demarius Bowles types, or the kind of the guys who get out and run it like 6'5", 6'6", John White and all those guys. And Cheshire signed a guy, Maceo Jack. He's only just been there a week now, and he's struggled to fit in. He hasn't scored a point in this game. Newcastle have had that with a couple of guys that they've signed. The guys Caledonia have, Bailey and Onwas, who are kind of glue guys as opposed to people you give the ball to get a bucket. And the market out there is tough for those type of players. Finding them, and so what we find is the teams that who've got the proven ones have actually been quite successful in retaining. That's particularly Leicester and Manchester with Dirk, those type of players. But any guys who are new to the league are having a real adjustment. And the reason I raise that is because it kind of just shows that this league isn't rubbish. It's not easy. It's not easy to come in, even if you're a talented college player, to come in to find your spots. And unless you're someone like Taj Green, who's just blowing everybody away, to come in, find your spots and make plays. It's a bit easier if you're a lead guard, because if you're a lead guard, it's your team. So you can be a David Sloan or a Javion Hamlet or whoever, and you can come in and you get the ball in your hands and it's just basketball. But for everybody else, it's hard. And that's why I think some of the teams, even now, some of the teams aren't fully formed. They're going to have a look at the way they're constituted moving forward. But it's not easy to find those guys. So yeah, excellent win for Bristol. Great bounce back for them, and also Mahan as well. To be honest, to be 1 of 15, and then to over 2 games and to make those 2 shots last 3 minutes. That's what the Mexicans call cojones.
It is, yes.
So I think it's Mexicans. I don't know, maybe other people as well. But you got to give him a ton of credit for that.
Yeah.
Ton of credit.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I was going to slag him off for not far too much until he made those 2 shots. No, you should have shoot, and he made them. And they, ultimately, whatever happened in the rest of the game, without those 2 shots,
no, exactly, they lose. Yeah, they lose in regulation. So Austin 22, Evans 15, Neighbour 14 for Cheshire. Bell 27 points, 8 rebounds. King had 16. Miller 15 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 6 turnovers. But nearly a triple-double, nearly a quadruple-double, I suppose.
Didn't have the ball at the end.
No, he didn't have the ball at the end. 18 offensive rebounds, 18 second chance points, and 45% from field goal. I think those are the 2 numbers that we're going to talk about with Bristol all season long.
Well, the interesting stat for Bristol all season will be how many more shots they shoot than the opposition in a game, because that can impact the scores, substantially.
I still go back to, I'd rather shoot less shots than more of them go in. But hey, if as I said, was it last week or the week before, 45% a point and offensive rebound, that will win you a lot of games.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 1 of 5 out of 6.
Yeah. So we've massively overrun. So I'll just quickly run through the overrun, like we have a set schedule.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
I'll just run through the league table. London 7-0, Bristol 5-1, Manchester 4-3, Sheffield 3-4, Cheshire 3-5, Caledonia and Plymouth 2-2, Leicester 2-3, Newcastle 1-5, and Surrey 0-4. It's just weird seeing a table with Leicester in 8th and Newcastle in 9th. Times they are a-changing. Are we going to throw in a Dylan now every week for the rest of this? I could probably do that, actually. The interesting one on that is take London out because they're 3-0 away from home. Nobody is above 500 away from home. Bristol are 500, obviously 1-1, having played their 2 away games this week. Everybody else is below 500 away.
We have 3 teams over 500.
Over 500, yes, 3.
Only 3 teams over 500, and Manchester are 1 game away from slipping below. Which just goes to show. As I say, it's why I don't think that these tables are anywhere near fully formed yet, because the teams that improve or the teams that get better, well, obviously that means the same thing. The teams that improve are going to have an impact, are going to go on runs during the course of the year. So I mean, at the moment you'd think, well, Leicester are nowhere near a 2 and 3 team. the other team, you just don't know, because it's going to be easy to drop 4 games in a row in this league. It also can be hard, but possible to win 4 games in a row if you get it rolling, if you get comfortable with what you're doing, if you're working with, working with the right group, which makes it interesting. It's interesting only as far as the fact that, it's probably for second place, because,
it is.
Let's not be overly, Sky TV like here and say it's all to play for or anything like that. The reality is,
I mean, the thing you go on is if you finish second or third, you can't play London until the final.
That's true. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's a race for the top 7, isn't it? Let's be honest. But even then, it's 2-legged playoffs, which does my head in after 36 games. Bad. It's not good. But that's another thing, another argument for another day. And finally, just as we are overrunning, we're currently 3 weeks away from the Great Britain v Serbia game.
Yeah.
As of yet, we don't have a coach.
No.
We don't have a team. We don't have any public announcements or protestations or information about anything, other than the fact that the game is being played
in Newcastle.
In Newcastle, that's it. Nothing more.
Roll up, buy your tickets. We don't know what you're going to see.
Nobody has come out and explained or said anything as to the direction of the organisation. The Basketball England covered themselves in absolute glory this week by putting out a tweet advertising a new position as an elected director and for, I think, an appointed director, but you had to put your application in by yesterday. And nobody from Basketball England has, and I'm not even sure that's just inadequacy and competency, or whether it is a kind of a closed shop conspiracy theory. I don't know. But I know it's.
I usually are on the cock up over conspiracy.
I always do. As a lawyer, as a defense lawyer, it's 99% cock up, 1% conspiracy. There might be one or two whereby you think, oh, there's a little rabbit. Our phrase is, there's a rabbit off here. That means there's something not quite right. The police haven't quite disclosed the right amount of body cam footage or something. But generally, it's cock up. But what a state! Have we not learned? Has nothing been learned? There's nothing. Nobody's resigned. Nobody's been appointed. Nobody's clarified any lines of responsibility. We don't even have a sodding coach. Right, and I'm not coming at this, I'm not saying this out of. I don't have any inside knowledge yet. I have no, and obviously I know.
Well, it's in Newcastle. It's 7 minutes from your house. It could be you, mate.
Well, at this rate, it's just nuts. And it's such a slap in the face. I just think it's like, oh well, yeah, it's almost it's the haughtiness and the arrogance of it. Oh, well, we got everything horrendously wrong, but nothing's going. But we're not actually going to either accept that, or we're not going to say we're going to change anything. We're not going to throw an olive branch out to the fans or to the players or to anything or to anybody. We're not going to have any form of publicity machine pushing forward the game. There's nobody behind it or suggesting that. We've seen what the BBL's done in relation to all the steps forward the BBL has undoubtedly taken in relation to its presentation of itself, activity in the market, everything. It would be wrong to suggest it's anything other than palpable and noticeable development. We've seen what's happening in London. There's a tweet today about the upper deck being open in London for a BBL game. That doesn't happen. That hasn't happened, right? And there are people in there, right? So we see that this kind of momentum that's coming forward from the BBL. And the Great Britain side of it is just, it's almost, it's Mel Brooks, it's the producers. It's almost like they don't want anyone to come. They don't, it's almost like it's a nuisance to have a team. And I don't know, this is kind of a, the old man rant shouts at cloud again, but it's abominable. Somebody wants us to do well, wants the players to do well. And obviously had the advantage of being able to go to all the home games recently, so you build up a bit of an affinity with the program and with what's going on, and you see the amount of effort and intensity that goes into it from the players. Lions and donkeys, lions led by donkeys, and that's and that's not personal. That's just a view. I don't know the people. That's just a view of the overall inadequacy of what's going on. And so that's kind of the follow-up rant to the what
Yeah.
for those of you who just watched the BBL.
That's coming in 3 weeks' time when they
in 3
play.
weeks' time. Well, it's just I think we should have an update because it's wrong just
no, it's
kind
true.
of react
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah.
You know, because you always say, well, look, we'll flag this up immediately. You know, we haven't got a coach, we haven't got a team. What the hell is going on? Sorry.
Don't know. But to save the poor people who are out there on a workout from collapsing through exhaustion, we need to bring tonight's show to a conclusion. So we will definitely pick that back up nearer to the time, and we'll obviously cover the game as well when it comes around. But for now, have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next Sunday night. Goodbye.